The Tulsa Race Riot of 1921 is one of the least known events among African and white Americans. However, it's probably one of the most costly incidents of racial violence in American history.
Tell me what you know about the Tulsa Race Riots.
I don't know a lot. All I know is that my grandmother was a part of it.
Have you ever heard of the Tulsa Race Riots?
No?
Can you tell me what you know about the Tulsa Race Riots?
Nothing. At all. I didn't know there were race riots.
What do you know about the Tulsa Race Riots?
Started in the early 1920s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Greenwood area was predominantly African-American area, was raided by white neighbors. Can't remember why.
Something about, I think it started, a black man was in the elevator with a white woman, and she accused him of doing something to her. And it got the white people all riled up, and they went and attacked the black people's homes, burning them and stuff.
But one of the things that we didn't learn in junior high in Oklahoma history was that there was a riot in 1921. So when we got to that chapter of that time period, I mentioned that to the teacher, who wasn't from Oklahoma, and she got quite upset to the point that she sent me down to the office. And my mother was called, and she had to come down and talk to the teacher and the principal. The principal was not of Oklahoma either. But after about an hour's discussion, they understood that there was some things left out of the history book.
Among the fewer than 100 known living survivors is Kentucky native Mary Tacoma Maupin. Although she was only 15 at the time of the riots, she can articulate the events as if it was only yesterday. By 1921, Tulsa was booming, mainly due to the discovery of oil. Bank deposits were reportedly over $65 million, and blacks too were able to prosper from this discovery.
And when they had to abolish slavery, these Indians gave to their Negro servants, they had to give them a certain amount of land. And when they struck oil on the land, the Negro free slaves were rich.
However, Tulsa was one of the most racist and segregated towns.
They would call themselves separate but equal.
One of the things I do remember as a child, when I was 6 or 7 years old, my dad we'd get in a car, my mom would go down to Latimer's Barbecue, which was at Archer and Harvard, I think, at that time. And they still had the building that had the entrance for the blacks and the entrance for the whites. And you'd walk in, and the counter was, about 10 times longer than this table, and blacks would be on one side, whites would be on the other, and there'd be a walkway in between where the servers would bring you your meal. It could be an absolute fight going on outside, but as soon as you stepped into the Latimers, everybody was best friends.
The churches and groceries and markets and all of that, the blacks were separate, but we had everything in our community for a living.
Since African Americans could neither live among whites as equals nor patronize white businesses, blacks had to develop a completely separate community, which soon became prosperous and legendary.
The Greenwood district was the business district for the Negro section.
Greenwood district was a bustling metropolis of black enterprise. People had come back from the First World War, had set up shop, and done very well.
The Negro section had 3-story hotel with the glass ballroom floor. We had grocery stores, markets of different kinds. We had a theater, automobile garage, drugstores, and we had everything for complete living.
There were also a large number of black professionals, including doctors, lawyers, and dentists. Most impressively, there were 15 African American physicians in Tulsa at the time of the riots. Tulsa's progressive African American community boasted some of the city's most elegant brick homes, well furnished with china, fine linens, beautiful furniture, and grand pianos. The homes were described as having such beauty and splendor which would please even the most critical eye. Well-known African American personalities often visited Greenwood District, including educator Mary McLeod Bethune and W.B. Du Bois, scientist George Washington Carver, blues singer Dinah Washington, and noted Chicago chemist Percy Julian. The business district became so successful and vibrant that Booker T. Washington, during his visit, named the community the Negro Wall Street. Today, we know it as the Black Wall Street. Not only was Tulsa's African American community growing, but by 1921, membership in the Ku Klux Klan was rapidly spreading throughout America, and an active chapter had been formed in Tulsa. Unfortunately, the prosperity of the Greenwood District was about to come to an eruptive end. And like many racially charged events in American history, it started with an allegation over Memorial Day weekend.
An accusation of a black man accosting a white woman in I believe it was the Tulsa hotel elevator. I think eventually that was proven to be wrong.
The Tulsa Tribune ran an inflammatory editorial that not only suggested but incited that there would be a lynching of the accused man, Dick Rowland. Rumors raced through the black community that a lynch mob was planning to hang the youth. About 75 armed African American men rushed to the police station to stop the lynching. They were greeted by about 2,000 white Tulsans. A struggle resulted in a gun being fired, and the rioting began.
The conflict between the black and the white had been there for quite some time. And it was just that one incident apparently was a trigger for the whole episode that we understand as the Tulsa Race Riots.
The state of Oklahoma mobilized a unit of the National Guard. The unit received a machine gun from the city police that was mounted on a flatbed truck and used against the men, women, and children of Greenwood.
When the riot broke out, I was at home. My aunt and uncle, with whom I lived and who reared me, had dinner about 6 o'clock each day. My uncle was the vice president and supervisor of Maurice Wells Hospital. And my uncle called to tell her not to wait dinner for him, because when he was ready to leave, they began bringing in people who were injured from a shooting. It was about 10 o'clock when he was able to come home. And as the night grew on, we heard a little more.
Through the night, fires were set and fighting continued as Greenwood's war veterans and citizens defended their community from the white attackers.
My uncle, when he came home, suggested that we not sleep in the bed. So we pulled the mattresses off and we slept on the floor because he said a stray bullet might come in. So he happened to open the door, and when he opened the door, a bullet came in. And he closed it quickly, locked it, and brought the key with me. And he said, "We have to get out from here. There is a mob of people in our front yard." And he couldn't use his car because the driveway would lead to the street. So we had to run out the back.
The whites broke into the black homes and businesses, forcing the residents at gunpoint to one of a growing number of interment centers. Anyone who resisted was shot.
As we lined up to get in the truck, and was like a cattle truck, they searched us one by one, and we were herded in there like cattle. And then they drove us to a ballpark. They saw my uncle and told whose name was Dr. Bridgewater, and they told him that they needed him. They were looking for him at the hospital. But my aunt and I remained in that area. And they took him, and we didn't see him all day. And as we stood talking, sharing experiences, someone hollered for me to move. And said, "There is that plane is lowering, and they are shooting from the air down." And just as I moved, bullet had hit the ground. And then the next morning, relatives and white families for whom many of the refugees work, came and took their maids and servants and sheltered them in their homes.
They had their farm help, and they actually had to go down and get them from the jail and bring them back to the farm, and they had to stay in the basement for I don't know what period of time, but that was to protect them because there was just vigilantes driving around shooting, and the mayhem was just quite horrible.
While the blacks had been detained, the whites looted their homes and businesses, pocketing small items and hauling away larger items either on foot or by car or by truck. Finally, the rioters set the homes and other buildings on fire, block by block, using torches and oil-soaked rags.
They set fire to our house, but Judge Oliphant, a white friend of my uncle's, said that that's my house. I own that house, and you don't burn it down. And when we walked in, the floor was just covered with broken dishes. My aunt had some hand-painted dishes and had a set that she had bought from China. All of them, they said they had thrown them on the floor and just broken them and said, look at this, the idea of niggers living like white people and have the nerve to have all of this. They said that they noticed a safe, our money vault, had been brought out in the yard, and the door, we were told that they used the sledgehammer to get that door off of the vault. We noticed a music cabinet that was mine, where all of my pieces of music were kept. There was a thick oil that had been poured on it, and they were using my music to set the house on fire.
During the 18 hours of rioting, 40 square blocks of 1,265 homes and businesses were looted and then burned to the ground, including hospitals, schools, and churches owned primarily by African Americans. There was $1.8 million, nearly $21 million in 2007 dollars in property damage. An estimated 9,000 were left homeless and living in tents well into the winter of 1921. Over 800 people were admitted to local hospitals for injuries. Officially, 39 people were reported killed in the riot. According to the Red Cross official report, around 300 persons were killed in the riots. However, other estimates range as high as 3,000.
My grandfather told the story that they actually, the people that were shot and people driving along in trucks with rifles, just shooting indiscriminately, killing anything that walked. But he relates the story that they were actually bodies stacked in Boulder Park, which was about 15th and Boulder. And I've never seen pictures of that, but I don't doubt that his recollection was pretty good. I think the estimates are probably low compared with what the official estimates are, but who's to know?
On June 1st, 1996, the 75th anniversary ceremony of the riots took place. It began with singing, prayers, and speeches at Greenwood's Mount Zion Baptist Church, itself a powerful symbol of the riot, having been burned to the ground only 2 months after its completion. About 1,200 people attended the services at Mount Zion Baptist Church. The participants in the church services then marched to the new site of a new memorial that bears the name of the black businesses burned in the riot. An eternal flame on one side of the memorial symbolizes the resilience of the black community. Water pouring down the other side of the black granite marker symbolizes healing. Except for the railroad tracks, Greenwood today bears little resemblance to that flourishing community of the 1920s. Many of the riot survivors have since left and not returned. Many of the businesses that were destroyed did not reopen. Among the businesses that were rebuilt was the practice of Dr. Robert T. Bridgewater at 103.5 North Greenwood Avenue. This is the location of 103 North Greenwood Avenue today.
What I remember of Greenwood when I was a little kid was that, it was still a fairly devastated area from the riots. The buildings hadn't been brought back. There was a lot of empty storefronts. But as things progressed throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was a renovation of Greenwood District, and now it's an art center, cultural center. They have the Jazz Festival. They've got lots of different arts and crafts, things that go on in Greenwood all the time.
Today, all that remains of the Black Wall Street is a single gentrified block of Greenwood Avenue, which is home for businesses such as Creative Touch Alterations, the Brothers Hat Shops, the Herbs and Health Store, and T's Barbershop. The area is surrounded by new urban renewal projects, and right up the street is a new university complex. Perhaps what resonates most about the Tulsa race riots is not so much the devastation of a community, but the fact that there was a community so prosperous and vibrant, a community that stood on the principle of faith, hard work, and achievement. Let's not shed a tear for what was, but yet let's embrace what can be.